Doom was a game released by id Software in December 1993. And it's almost December 2013, the 20th anniversary, so I thought it might be nice to look back at the first episode and see what's so special about the damn game, because it does have the modding scene, although not quite as much as it used to, obviously, and the influence of Doom can be felt everywhere, any kind of 3D or first-person game that you can think of. But this first episode, where it all started, was released as shareware, which means that you could play the whole thing for free. It was a common distribution model in the 80s and 90s for you to get a full encapsulated experience in these like little episodes that would hopefully encourage you to pay for the full game. Of course, the funny thing is a lot of people didn't pay for the full game, so the memories that a lot of people have with these games are really with the shareware episodes, and it's kind of rightfully so in some cases, because often the shareware episodes are the most like tightly designed and the most revered, because they were designed probably with more purpose and intent to try to get people interested in the game and pay for it. So a lot of games like Duke Nukem 1 is one that I can think of as an example that I was really into. The shareware episode is really the strongest episode of that game. But and that is arguably so also with Doom 1. The style of the first episode is more revered among fans and still emulated endlessly over and over and over and over again if you look at fan mods. And, you know, it comes and goes, of course, but it's kind of coming back, the phase of fan mods that are directly trying to emulate the original style. There's one called Doom the Way It Did, where people try to imitate the styles of specific designers. But the first episode, the style of the first episode has come to be called a tech base, which is kind of just a name invented by fans, but is a style sort of inspired by kind of military bases, and also the movie Alien, which they originally, there's a talk in the GDC vault about this from 2013, but they originally wanted to try to do an adaptation of the movie Alien. So there is influence there in some of the art, especially some of the textures, the computer textures that you'll see later. But this first level is just kind of a preview of things that you'll see later on, and almost like doesn't really start the game proper as far as I'm concerned, so I'm kind of just talking over it. So, but you can at least see what's there. There's kind of a use of the non-orthogonal geometry. That was a huge change from Wolfenstein, and John Romero definitely tried to take advantage of that as much as he could, and that kind of defines the style. Also the use of height variation, which you don't see very much in this map, but you'll see later, and lighting, which again is subtle here, but you'll see it later. But that zigzag pattern is very distinctive, and something probably done to just show that you're dealing with something much different from Wolfenstein here. And Doom really is its own beast, and the engine is something that is very kind of unique and strange, because it's not a proper 3D engine, but there's a large amount possible that you can do with it. You can see this invisible wall here coming up from the secret. There's that zigzag pattern, and you really see what the game looked like to somebody for the first time in 1993, because I'm playing with the source port that emulates the original version. And the original version has a stretched resolution. It's 300 by 240, but the graphics were made to be stretched a little bit, which means source ports kind of don't quite properly run it, especially when you run it at higher resolutions. So level 2, Nuclear Plant, is really where the episode proper begins. And you can see this space, which is in early alpha versions of Doom, is sort of this test space trying out something that can't be done. The new features of the engine, things that can't be done in the original Wolfenstein engine, which is just 90-degree walls and no height variation, and the amount of textures and stuff that can be applied in all kinds of places to add this kind of atmospheric depth to the episode, which has a very distinctive feel. But you see that armor straight through your view, and you go up the stairs and there's a lift, which is probably the first time in the game that you've seen a lift, and this lift just keeps going up and down. There's nothing really interesting contained here except for a shotgun, which might be good if you're starting out the map, but and then that pulls you in here where these guys are. But this is an open space, and John Romero put a lot of emphasis in openness and interconnectedness in his maps to make it feel like a space that you had a real relationship with. Here you can see a secret, and some of the H.R. Geiger-like textures that I mentioned before are there. Also the weird illuminated switches and glowing lights that kind of really define this game's mood so much. Here you go up a lift just to get a secret, but the interesting thing about this map is the use of height variations in particular, which you won't see as much here, but there's once you enter in this area and go up the stairs, it's definitely noticeable. And you notice how many of these rooms are put with windows so that you can see the outside, which is really a really good way of establishing a mood while using very little. I'm showing you there that those panels go back further just to give a feeling of depth and stuff. But outside, there's one of John Romero's design rules was that if you can see the outside, then you should be able to get there, and that's also true here. Although that's a secret that was in the secret room that I hit the switch from earlier. And because I'm playing on ultraviolence, you see these guys, but I get a nice reward from Berserk or Supercharge. Yeah, and so these areas really, even with very minimal detail, establish this mood that's kind of undeniable and makes you really feel like you're in a location that's very otherworldly. So that's the first part of the map, and it's very simple, but you have to understand that this is the second map, and so it's still kind of establishing all these things in the vocabulary of the game. And here, once again, if you just go straight and go up those stairs, you'll get to the last area of the level, but there's this side area that takes up a lot of space that I'm going to go to here just to show you what the game does with lighting in particular. This area really terrified me when I was a kid, and you can kind of see why. The orthogonal, non-orthogonal walls and the extreme lighting is just one of the first rooms that really takes advantage of that and makes it feel like there's something really spooky and otherworldly about this whole location that you're in. Excuse me. And so this area, you're wandering around in the dark, just trying to find secrets and stuff. You don't actually need to go here, but it does add a lot of color to the level, and it gives this feeling that it's built over this enormous computer base that you'll see more of in theme later on, especially in levels 6 and 7. It's really, there's a kind of atmosphere and mood that these levels have that isn't really held together in other episodes. So I think there's something there. There's a kind of inexplicable thing that some, might a tribute to nostalgia or whatever, but I think is a very intentionally created and evoked feeling. And I think the difference there is in that John Romero was specifically designing levels for the engine and to take advantage of what the engine could do. And Tom Hall, before he was, canned from the project, was trying to design towards a story that didn't necessarily take advantage of the geometry and stuff and the engine as much, because he was writing this story, and this is an entirely new engine which needed kind of an entirely new design vocabulary. So John Romero had this set of rules that he made for things to not do and things to do with this new engine, which involved not making it look like Wolfenstein, and having conscious use of variation and making sure that there are landmarks so that people know where they're going, and making sure that there's a lot of places that can be accessed from different areas, because navigating in these spaces is difficult and confusing even today, kind of, with the low resolution here, more H.R. Geiger influenced weirdness. But yeah, I think if you look at the auto map, which I'll do a little later, this computer area kind of looks like just some kind of incoherent, sprawling mess. But when you're wandering through it, it makes a weird kind of sense, and that's the thing about the engine of this game. It's these levels. Yeah, there you go. These levels are really designed to take advantage of that, to the extent that a lot of others really aren't. And that's one of the weird things with modern source ports and stuff. When you play it, there still is that mystery there, but these are so much designed for the 320 by 200 resolution. So here you're going up, and you can see the height variation are really intentionally played to build up this kind of dramatic suspense, which is another thing this episode does really well. And you come to a different little winding area that sends you back down into this unexpected confrontation. But there's also a secret from the side here. In a lot of these levels, there are these little secrets that let you sort of break the sequence, because John Romero, wanted players to have a variety of options, and I think a lot of that also has to do with these maps being designed for multiplayer. So yeah, this is the drop, and I remember it was kind of slightly breathtaking for me when I first played the game, because I just never seen anything like that. It maybe looks pretty tame and stupid today, but there is a lot of attention in these levels made towards getting someone acquainted with this engine for the first time, while also kind of providing a really unique and interesting experience. And that's one of the things that makes it interesting to study. Here, this is a very undetailed room, but because of what came before it and the weird shape, it really works. It wouldn't work maybe in some other context, but when you open the door, once again, you see a big confrontation. And this is one thing that John Romero did a lot of, is spaces where there are no confrontations and then big confrontations as a sort of tension builder. And that's one thing that he's kind of the master of. So I didn't get all the secrets, which I am ashamed of. I don't really know what I missed, but that's okay. So level 3, which is called Toxin Refinery, was one of my favorites when I was younger because of the amount of landmarks in this level, which was one of John Romero's design principles, is to have clear landmarks, and that does serve a nice purpose for navigation, but it also distinguishes a lot of these levels from each other. And despite the fact that there are a lot of areas that resemble each other, you still don't mistake them for each other, and that's kind of a feat in itself, really. But this one, the distinguishing thing is this big toxic waste pit that if you fall down in, there's no way to get back up from, as far as I know. Maybe that's not true, actually. I should probably check on that. It's definitely true later in the episode. And I don't think there was a real rule that was established. You know, now it's an unwritten rule of design that if you put somebody in a toxic waste pit, you should always be able to let them out of it. But that wasn't the case here because the game had just came out, and you know, so kind of has to be excused for that. But yeah, that big cobblestone wall is unmistakable and something that really gives that area a distinctive feel. And here's one of the more memorable little secrets in the game. There are many soul spheres in this game. Like, there was one that I picked up actually on level 2, but that one will always stick out in my memory because it's raised on this platform, just taunting you in full view. It's one of the best use of taunting, trying to get people to get to secrets that I've ever seen in a map, a Doom map at least. Maybe, you know, a map in general. And here's another one. You get a view to an area that you don't know what it is, but is actually the secret exit. But yeah, there are all these areas that are inaccessible, especially in this map, that can only be gotten to if you got secrets, if you get to them from the right secrets, which adds a lot of depth to these maps and makes it feel like there are these worlds beyond what you're seeing when you're playing through them first. Because I didn't know about a lot of these secrets, and some of them I didn't know about actually until like today because I was just not somebody who played these very comprehensively. I didn't have a lot of patience as a kid. That entrance is at an odd angle and is an interesting kind of architectural feature again that was very not possible with Wolfenstein, but was very much taken advantage of in this game. And and that's definitely true of map 7. You'll see a lot of weird rooms entering at weird angles, and it makes the game really kind of beautiful and distinctive. Here I'm kind of fucking up, but more computer zone areas that are not required, but again, kind of preview what you're going to see later on. And there are 2 secrets in this room, one which I'm going to struggle a long time to find, but I don't know how you'd ever find this out. Maybe if you have the sound way up when you walk down there, you can hear the lifts go down. I think I might have actually discovered this one on my own, but it's a really clever secret and not one that you would think of if you were first playing this game. You wouldn't think to just like run over there, because really you can just barely make it. But yeah, this puts you in an area that gives you armor and also unlocks the secret to the secret level. But I'm not going to go there. I will go to the exit, but I'm not going to actually go to the level because I'm not actually a huge fan of it. I don't know, maybe if I went back and played it again, but I'll do that another day. Yes. So these computer things, like, they obviously serve no functional purpose. You can't interact with them, but it feels like something that you could interact with, or at least something that is like contributing to why the environment is the way that it is, and that's kind of the beauty of it. And maybe some of that is just that everything is so low resolution that it feels like there's a lot more depth there than it really is. And I think that's something that you really lose when you play Doom with newer source ports, where you can, raise the resolution to 1600 by 900 and stuff like that. And the game just kind of looks more flat and empty than it ever did before. But this, original 300 by 200, it kind of looks weirdly alive, if only because you can't tell what's going on at some level. There's just this haziness all over it, which is why I like a lot of things that are low resolution in general. And, I'm sad that age has kind of passed us, though maybe that's not the case now. Here I'm gonna try and figure out where this actual secret is, so you'll have to bear with me. This is one of the Doom wikis. I think there's two. It's actually very useful if you want to check that out. You should definitely. I think it's doom.wikia.com or maybe it's, I don't know, just Google Doom Wiki. Yeah, that one's doomwiki.org. There are two different ones. That's the map, and there are areas of secret highlighted. And you can see that room. Oh, shit, I just scrolled away from it. Well, the room that's at an odd angle is the one that I'm in. And there's something beautiful about that, even though, once again, like, so many of these spaces are not really realistic. They're designed very much for the game, and they do feel real. They do feel very detailed and alive, despite the fact that, there's only a limited amount of interaction that you can have with them. So yeah, I found the secret. Nice winding staircase and pitch darkness. If this area had been a square room, it would look terribly boring, because this texture is not terribly exciting. But because there was that winding staircase, and because it kind of peeked into darkness, yeah. And here you get to stand and admire the secret. But yeah, because it peeks into darkness, it adds this kind of unknowable depth, which, once again, lighting is huge to making a map feel alive and to making it feel like there's much more there than really was there. It's a suggestion of depth. And now I'm gonna miss this. This map is a lot more, actually a lot more linear in a lot of ways than, well, probably about equally linear, but from the entrance there's only two doors that you can go into, and those doors are not really related to each other, and yet once you get into these designated areas, they're very interconnected and they're very windy, and lots of secrets, connect them. Here you're going to go outside for the first time if you haven't accessed any secrets before, so this is definitely a dramatic moment of dramatic tension, and something that's upped even more once you get the key just up here. And this was part of the reason why it was my favorite map in this episode when I was younger. Yeah, if you, for some reason, going in the center, yeah, there's a switch there. I guess because there's a med kit. But if you fall on either of those sides, you will die, and you won't be able to get back out. Who knows why? It was just before the time when that was considered cheap, I guess. Or we just didn't think about it, I don't know. I don't know how you wouldn't have thought about it. But yeah, that you go immediately back into this tech-based kind of area, and there's the key on an illuminated platform, and when you pick it up, this is one of the first examples of gotcha, which is like such a amazingly popular Doom trope. To put, a key or a weapon on a suspended platform, and then to have you run over it and have, it trigger the lights to go off, or more commonly trigger billions and billions of monsters to come out. And this is just like, there's so many Doom maps that do this in so many ways, and actually it's really kind of a design cliche that's gotten old. But you don't see much of it here, and I think there's a reason for that. But a lot of it is just that this game would have been very difficult for people playing it for the first time, so they wanted to introduce these things gradually, and that's something that this episode is very good at doing. Yes. So yeah, here's the secret, and this crazy H.R. Geiger texture gives way just to a normal base area. And here's the secret exit. And there's also a bonus little secret where you can get the rockets that you saw on that ledge. So interconnectedness that kind of doesn't really make sense, but it's nice that it's there. And if you're playing it on multiplayer again. So it's nice that these spaces have kind of a double functionality. Yeah, so here's the only proper key area that you need to go. And there's really both these halls, like in level 2, the 2 doors from the beginning, both these halls lead to the ending. But because they're broken up, it feels like, it makes it feel kind of more organic. And it also builds up attention. This room is just this side secret room that's kind of surprisingly detailed, and definitely seems reminiscent of the zigzag room in the first level. But this sends you, presumably, if you picked up that key, this sends you to a big secret out here where there are all these guys shooting at you from afar. And this makes me think of the very ending of one of John Romero's maps called the Industrial Zone. Has an area that's a lot more involved like this, but has a similar idea. But yeah, I guess that's where you get to see the partial invisibility item for the first time, which I picked up there. But I never thought it was particularly useful. Probably more useful in multiplayer. Because I don't know to what extent like the AI is programmed that it really helps you. Maybe it helps you against hit scanners. Hit scanners are the sergeants, the zombie dudes who just you can't see the bullets. That's basically what it means. Yeah, I always loved this area. Just like the entrance, it's kind of a 3-pronged hallway, but either side there's nothing there. They're just columns. They're kind of just there to establish a mood, and then once you walk forward, there's a raised staircase and this exit sign, which is kind of funny and cartoony and comic booky, but it works with this game. But yeah, that's the end of level 3. So that's the end of the first 3 levels for now, and I will hopefully do more of these tomorrow or the next day, and hopefully prepare a little bit more, maybe. But at least you can look at the the blinking lights on the buildings on the auto map. That's one thing that I hated about Doom 2, is it didn't have that nice auto map that made it feel like you were in a consistent place. I always loved the level 5 that has the weird alien looking ones in the middle of the screen. But yeah, I will see you guys later, and hopefully you got something out of this.